Good morning. It is 9:02, and I'm going to call this meeting to order for the Properties Committee. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't already done so. Just as a little housekeeping reminder, since we're new into the season, that anybody in the audience who wishes to speak will be able to do so when it's appropriate. They will need to go to the podium, sign in with their name and their rec card number, 2 minutes allotted time. And also to improve any transparency, the residents participating at home will be able to type in questions and messages, and we will respond to them later in the program. So we'll move right in. We do have a quorum. However, we are missing 2 members who may be coming in. We'll see. So 201 is the approval of the amended minutes from the September 14th meeting. The only amendment was a change. There was the wrong golf course name listed in the minutes. It was actually talking about the sprinkler system at the Crooked Putter at Grandview, not Pebblebrook. Does anyone else have any changes or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, they will be accepted as written. Moving along to 3.01. This is an update on the facilities and capital projects. Carl, you're up.
Thank you, Director. Good morning, Committee. For the month of September to October, our capital projects update, R.H. Johnson Sports Pavilion Bowling Lanes replacement. That project was completed on 9/8. Sports Pavilion Ball Returns replacement project was completed also on 9/8. The parking lot number 3 in front of Admin, Social Hall, and Sports Pavilion, the asphalt mill and replacement, that project was completed on 9/19. There's just been subsequent little punch list items that have been going on after the project, but all things are managed and on schedule. A little bit of curbing touch-up and paint touch-up on curbs. And Todd's environmental services team is doing touch-ups to any of the islands that need rock, turf, or irrigation adjustments. Parking lot number 2 at R.H. Johnson, asphalt seal and stripe, was also completed on 9/27. Just a reminder for the community and the knowledge of the committee is that after we do a mill and asphalt replacement, where we actually take out all the asphalt, 1 year later we do a seal coat, and that's what preserves the starting life of that asphalt project that's brand new. The Zymergy Club, from a space utilization conversation, CR13 request for reviewing their club and possibly needing some additional space. The recommendation for a shed was made, and we purchased them an 8x10 shed, and that was installed and completed on 9/12. And that is located behind the club between the activity center and the mini golf. Maintenance yard, property fence and gates, fabrication on the welded and iron fence with all the little spike tips are just about complete and should be installing in the next week or so. The bocce facility had positive news from last time on progress. The Trex boards that were purchased from the manufacturer arrived and have been installed, and the general contractor on that job is performing final work on those boards, and we're just waiting on the turf to go to the next stages towards completion. Moving over to Beardsley, Arts and Crafts Courtyard Canopy and Renovation. This is a 2-part project. We removed concrete in the desired location, approximately 20 by 40 worth of concrete. Replaced that with a very decorative paver system for positive drainage and decor, and that is complete. Then the next phase is approximately 14 to 16 weeks from now. The shade canopy structure will actually arrive. So all vendors that bid made the same notes that the industry is just that backed up in shade canopies. So Nothing wrong with that, but all the footers are in place, and all we have to do is remove a few pavers, set up the canopy by that vendor, and then touch up the pavers, and that project will be complete in the new year. Palm Ridge Summit Hall window shade blinds replacement. This report was printed and sent to the committee earlier. That project was technically completed, but after final install, staff and I are not pleased with the results. There's a lot of spill of sun coming through the fabric that was selected. The scope was pretty clear on same for same, so we are working with them right now they're gonna take down that fabric and they're gonna line it with another layer of fabric to zero out the sun that spills through the shades themselves. Otherwise, all the motorized units that were part of that project scope that needed to be replaced, they did a great job. I mean, they hung them well. Again, working with them, they are being very helpful, and they will put another layer of fabric. Trail Ridge Pro Shop parking lot asphalt mill and replacement. Same vendor that did Beardsley did another fantastic job. We had minimal soil stabilization to be included in that, and that project finished within approximately a week, and that is done as well. Over to Grandview, the Pro Shop parking lot asphalt mill and replacement was completed on 9/7. And the golf lab flooring replacement was completed 9/8. And that concludes my part of the report.
Does anyone have any questions for Carl on the committee?
Carl, it sounds like everything is going right on time and very good work with the vendors. Grandview, are we ever going to get the misters back over there for hamburger night?
Yeah. So that was, I think, addressed last month, and Bill assisted in communicating that with the golf team. That it's not an area that I manage, so I think, it was just either in progress or an oversight, but it's being installed or managed by Pat and his.
Carl, if I may, it was recommended, or it was suggested at the last meeting it would not be installed until spring.
Okay.
Thank you. With the fall season approaching, it was basically felt that the temperatures are not really warranted of misters kind of being used in the wintertime. We hope the temperature breaks soon. I know they've got another 100-degree day on Saturday ahead of us, but moving forward, I believe working with the golf team, the misters were removed when the maintenance was going on over there. The removal of some of that copper piping and did not really stand up too well. We did some assessment while looking at it over in the storage garage, and it's in pretty poor shape. So Mr. O'Hara went out and met with the misting companies and got a new quote as far as that goes, to get all new piping and misting devices prepared and lined out, and that is hopefully being planned for a reinstallation in the springtime prior to the heat coming on. Yes, ma'am.
Part two. Good morning, everyone. Okay, well, we installed some ADA assisted door openers, one at Beardsley Copper Cookers and one at Kuntz Craft Room 4. The one at Room 4 was actually on our list for last year. We pushed that one to this year because we did 2 at the pool per request from a member. We're also in progress of painting the exterior of Palm Ridge facility. The aquatics building has been completed, and we are now on to the Summit building. We have our first barbecue station fully completed over at Beardsley Park, and the remaining 2 will be done as time permits. We have completed the replacement of all pool signage. This was on previous properties list of things to do. All 4 facilities now have the same signage, and it looks much cleaner. We had replaced an electric line at Pebblebrook, hole number 13. The drinking fountain was down for some time, so that's been done. We also had another bad line over at Echo Mesa, number 12, and that also has been done. We replaced ice machine on the patio at Trail Ridge. This was to get the new ball machine out of the sun, and we took advantage of Carl's asphalt project. So we got all of our lines in prior to the new asphalt going in, so everything's nicely tucked under with no trench lines. So that was a good timing effort. That completes my report.
Anybody on the committee have any questions for Russ? Anybody in the audience? Thank you, Russ.
You're welcome.
We will move along to 4.0. Carl, tag you're it once again.
There you go. Okay, the FY 24-25 project planning process, proposed capital improvement projects list has gone into its second month of review. This list includes highlighted areas in each section, new R&R replacement, allowances that reflect any changes in cost. And just as a reminder that new is new, proposed items, and the blue and green areas are the items directly from the reserve study tool. So as we continue in this process, just remember that reserve study items are assets that are being replaced based on the best evaluation and their useful life. So any deferral of these projects as we make our recommendations in the next month or so, they don't actually get canceled. They just get an extended life if that's the decision that this committee or other committees make. So moving on, in the new section, the only thing that had changed is an evaluation of the Beardsley Park iron fence, 4 foot tall with gates across the current openings of sidewalks and vehicle access areas, was an increase of $10,000. Moving on to reserve study items. We had some significant changes here. I'll go to the first one, R.H. Johnson Social Hall ceiling renovation. I have spent another month of working with the original sound engineer, moving into the conversations with multiple architects, and the comments that I get back basically is we do not have time to help you in this area of project. So they did share some information that was maybe a little disheartening, that their assumptions were it was a lot more expensive than the $400,000 that I have projected. In a previous committee, the question was asked, where did the $400,000 idea come from? We met a year ago with a ceiling vendor, a sound vendor, an electrician, staff, and tallied some good estimations, if you will. But architectural feels that it's more significant than that. So my proposal right now is to postpone this at least a year and allow me to have the time that it deserves to find an architect that will work with us and bring it back up in the next budget cycle. Moving on, Silvercraft Millwork and Countertops. We've had some really positive meetings with the Silvercraft Club, actual architect that we have used on a regular basis for our remodels. And he is currently in the process of drawing our final plans, but enough information has been identified that I felt comfortable increasing the project scope and adding $75,000 from last month's review. And in the November update, I'll be providing you base level plans so that you get an opportunity to see it. And by then, I believe we will have walked that room as a committee on our properties tours. So a lot more information coming. The Palm Ridge pool deck, I'm gonna jump around a little bit. It has an exterior pool deck and an interior pool deck. The indoor had a decrease in cost of $81,000, and the outdoor had an added cost of $38,000. But the overall for the idea of rubber decking replacement of those 2 decks created a savings based on what we were tracking in the reserve study tool, so that's positive overall. And we did walk it at the properties, and you guys saw, what areas we were discussing. Getting back on track, the lawn bowling facility, sewer line, electrical lighting and conduit concrete replacement. We have made a decision to defer this as well until any future lawn bowling discussions and plans are being made, simply for the reason that Russ's facilities maintenance team did a great job on putting a camera down the line. We have no evidence of any line breakage in the sewer. We do have evidence, though, that towards the end of the run, closer to Meeker, that there is a dip in the line, probably from years of settling. And during moments of high use, that is potentially the area that causes maybe a little backup when a tournament or high use is happening. And we are discussing right now how we will help support the club during those moments that maybe prior to a tournament, we'd do a pre-line clean out just to give it its best opportunity to work for everybody's needs. But there's no reason to break that concrete out right now until we know where we're going with lawn bowling in the future. And there's also no reason to disturb the concrete for conduit only, again, if we don't know where we're going exactly in the future. So we'd like to park that and remove that from this year's budget. Moving on, had a very positive review with our roofing consultant. So we did our testing on a few roofs that were being proposed in this budget. We have approximately 3 roofs here at R.H. Johnson that have not only the coating that we virtually traditionally put on our restoration of our roofs, but these 3 roofs have stone on them. It was a product and life extending opportunity years ago. Best practice, I guess, at the time. It's our only roofs that have that stone. So, one, our roofs are in good condition, and the determination immediately was able to be made that the roofs could be extended till FY 29-30. So any of the 3 line items here that I have with flat stone roofs, those are going to get extended due to their condition today. And then the second information that was shared was I have a choice to make in 29 and 30 that the product that is out on the market today, we have the opportunity of removing the stone and going to a product that will basically match how we do coatings and other roofs and extend our warranty to a 20-year warranty if we choose. Now, the industry in roofing is creative, and that comes with a premium. So it's not like you'd get a 20-year warranty at the 10-year price, but it's a choice that we get to make in like I said, in future years. So the positive that I do see from it is that approximately 300 pounds of stone per square foot get to be removed off of our roofs, and we go to a traditional restoration coating like we do in other places. So, so that is located at R.H. Johnson Social Hall, and I'll touch on them where I see them as I go down my list. The Palm Ridge cardio equipment, treadmills and cross trainers. We did get some budget bidding in there, and the price is higher by $56,000. I don't know if that reflects in this document. I might have made a personal update on that. So if it does not, the Palm Ridge cardio equipment went from $129,792 to $186,000, which is an increase of $56,208. So I apologize for the documents not matching. That's the only place. Moving down to the activity center maintenance roof. So there's another stone roof that'll be postponed to FY 29-30. Palm Ridge activities and aquatics roofs, flat restore. Those are necessary, and the updated pricing reflects an increase of $44,000. Admin, R.H. Johnson admin flat roof is necessary, and that reflects updated roofing costs of an increase of $48,064. The softball field at Kuntz, electronic scoreboard replacement. I have been in communication with the club. They have not successfully provided me any additional or better information. I'm giving them 30 more days, and otherwise, you might see that this electronic scoreboard gets pushed for another year. This is the best information I have to date. Lawn bowling benches, we have proposed that 96 lawn bowling benches be replaced. We have narrowed it down to the middle cost bench. It matches the existing benches that are out there now. Everybody's satisfied with that. So that was approximately $500 per bench as opposed to the $700. And it still incorporates, you still have to incorporate shipping costs and taxes. So I believe that the adjusted price reflects that. UV filtration over at Kuntz. Russ has done a review of that area, and we made a correction that the filtration system technically is, it's tracked in the tool, but it has no real expectation of wearing out per se. But if it does, it's being tracked. Otherwise, Russ Facilities Maintenance maintains this through parts only and labor. So this is going to be deleted from the capital request and just be tracked through operating expenses as needed. The R.H. Johnson Spa building roof flat with stone, again, deferred to FY 2930. Moving down to Palm Ridge pickleball courts, I've interviewed a few new court surface companies. One of them has been a vendor that has performed with us previously over the years, General Acrylics, and I probably shouldn't have mentioned that, but their pricing is good. So it's better and more competitive than some of the other vendors that I was getting quotes from. And I'm confident that they'll do a good job, but in the past, they didn't have the time or availability for court resurfacing just as a separate sidebar project. So I'm very pleased to know that they're back in the game and I have that opportunity to use them. Moving on to pickleball courts resurface at R.H. Johnson, same exact scenario. You'll see the reflected cost is lower. Silvercraft flooring replacement with LVT. If that project is approved as a whole, then we'll remove the flooring in there, and today's flooring costs increased by $4,300. Pickleball courts windscreens and replacement. After reviewing a couple budgeting bids, that went down by $1,600. The Palm Ridge pool umbrellas replacement is being removed from this particular budget since the cost for those umbrellas is an operating expense, so they're not over $5,000, even though we expect a longer than 5-year life replacement. In the future, though, we'll combine the pickleball courts and the pool umbrellas, the pickleball court umbrellas and the pool umbrellas as a one-time purchase and useful life, and it'll be in a capital alignment in the future. So, and then the last thing is admin member services awnings. The vendor has shown an increase of a cost of $1,000. Moving on to golf-related reserve study items. The golf team and accounting have continued to review their items. There has been an increase in the irrigation system replacement of $743,000. Golf maintenance equipment, 23 pieces of equipment, has had a reduction after viewing their quoted replacement costs. Golf maintenance vehicles, 12 utility carts and 2 vehicles, has slight increase of $2,400. The Desert Trails Pro Shop parking lot asphalt mill and replace has an increase of $82,965, and this is simply because I have placed in the contingency factor of stabilization, and after a few of the asphalt vendors reviewed that and the way that irrigation works there, we do believe that we'll probably have some soil stabilization, so that's been factored in. And as far as anything else in the golf area, there was no changes, and there are no changes to allowances. And that concludes that.
Does anyone have any questions for Carl on these changes? You will be seeing it again, of course, next month for any other changes that transpire in the next 30 days. So, Nancy?
Carl, when we walked Palm Ridge, I thought we kind of thought that they wouldn't need to be resurfaced. The pickleball courts. You know, we talked with people and we were like, you look pretty good. Like, what?
So my evaluation and Russ joining me and walking through it, it has met its useful life.
Okay.
That's our determination. You walked it as a committee, you can make your recommendation. So we're open to that. Just remember that the key points are, you know, there were people playing, we got a few of their voices of input. Yes, they look really good. The sanding is been worn down, so, you know, we have that juggle of, you know, is it getting slick? So I think it's best that we keep this and stay on the cycle of basically our 8-year replacement. I have already extended this, I think, 1 year, so that we're into our 2nd year deferral, and it would just being deferred again. And at the cost, I don't know that this is an area that we would prioritize, maybe, you know. Just my thoughts.
John?
Two questions, Carl. First of all, nice job.
Thank you, sir.
The format's good. Are there any club-initiated projects? You know, you've broken down the new nicely. You've broken down the ones that come out of the tool. Is there any other sources for capital projects that you know, clubs have made recommendations that we do things of any type?
So, no club recommendation that involves a presentation, you know, either those discussions and that would have been primarily a lawn ball conversation that we had before the season started of the review of this budget. So those items have been deferred until next year. Leather room, as you see in the new section, asks for a new exhaust system. So that's a club CR13 request. Technically, softball is the one that brought it to our attention about the scoreboard not functioning as well as it could be. General manager, staff, and I made a determination that is an asset of ours, so that's why it's in the reserve section, not new. Silvercraft, there are so many components of that are reserve study related, but overall, it is a club request for any additional remodeling changes happening in that room. So we have the plans to free up the space in their office area, which is a small room, a small wall removal. Facilities maintenance and I will tackle that project ourselves if the overall project is approved. But the flooring and technically the countertops and cabinet are a reserve study item, but we are working very closely with that club to not just do what the reserve study has as a useful life, but to meet their needs as a room remodel.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds like we're responding to the needs of the clubs very nicely. Thank you for that
Yep.
update.
And I have nothing else that anybody has asked special, so.
Beautiful. My second question is, when we toured the Palm Ridge, we looked at some of the possibilities of a restroom in the shower rooms there, a renovation with the stalls. And I'm not seeing anything. Could you give me even an order of magnitude estimate of what that kind of a project would cost?
So are you referring to the fact that we showed you the issues we were having
Yes.
with toilet paper holders and stalls?
Yes,
Okay.
I didn't want to go too detailed on
Yeah.
that.
Well, let's give a little bit of
I was
the,
afraid I might choose the wrong words there, so, thank you.
let's give a little input so the audience and everybody knows what we're talking about. Prior to our tour and during our tour, we pointed out to you that the stalls are original or near original, and they were designed with a paper toilet holder system that was built into the stall. The partitions, that's what I want to clarify, the partitions, and they have no protective device, so we have literally a dozen rolls of paper periodically being stolen. So it either happens on a daily basis or throughout the month, we have just multiple, and it adds up. I see it in our waxy, purchase of goods for toilet paper. So in the interim, to stop the theft, we put in new dispensers, which only constrict the seating area, and it's very uncomfortable. We get a lot of comment forms. So I brought it to your attention to make a recommendation on, whether I should add that to this capital project. I'm personally working on that cost right now. I was assuming that maybe you would be bringing it up as a recommendation, but I will include it if Director Williams says to put it into next month's, absolutely.
Carl, could you have a quote for us by next month before we make it to that decision, please?
I believe so. I
I
will do
think
my
that's
best.
imperative before we make a decision as how much it's going to cost.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Any
That
other
answers my
questions?
questions.
And the last portion of that is it's, just for clarification, it's both men's and women's bathrooms at the activity center in the Summit Hall building, and then at the aquatic center in the men's and women's locker rooms.
Is there any chance we can put some cute signage in the stall that's like a toilet paper man that says, "Don't run away with me"? Or something like that, just to point it out? I mean, we've not done that, have we?
The action that we've taken is to put the locking mechanisms on the wall, so.
Well, I'm just wondering if we brought it to their attention and made them, more aware. Just a thought.
Taken into consideration.
For 1 year.
Any questions from the audience over Carl's presentation?
I'm Jolene Piaskowski, 132268. I'll direct these to Kay, right? Director?
Please.
Okay, so the admin, the awnings, are they also going to include the window where the receptionist sits? 'Cause that does
Yes,
not have an awning.
that was the significant reason the price changed by $1,000.
So you're going to do all of the ones that are there already and then add that one? Or are you taking that one off that really doesn't matter?
No, replace the fabric of all the existing frames and add matching fabric and frame to over the receptionist area.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. I must have missed that.
Anyone else? Okay, we are nearing the moment I know you've all been waiting for. Just to give those here the little background that last month I assigned Tom Jones, John Nicholas, and Alan Schlemmer to review policies FA 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and give us an update today if they find anything that needs changing or updating. This is required by this committee every year to review all of the policies that apply to us. Our deadline is to have that done by December 1st, have the governing board president and the general manager an update on if we feel anything needs to be updated. So we'll start first with the policy FO1, and Tom Jones will be making the oral presentations, and then we'll be able to ask questions at the conclusion. We're going to take one at a time, ask any questions, and then move on to the next one. Thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Kate. And John and Alan, jump in and rescue me if I get off track. FAO1 is capital project planning process. Essentially, this is what Carl just went over is the planning. 2.1 criteria for using the capital project planning process requires member input. Now, we had to make an assumption as to who the member was. So should that be qualified as to resident or member of, what type member is the input coming from? I guess is what, a question. 3.1, requests for capital projects, major repair, renovation, and new construction shall be submitted to the general manager on form FR1 attached by associated staff by September 1st of each year. Is that the date or is it July? I mean, I seem to recall that. Carl, would you be able to answer that?
Go ahead, girl.
So that is what our document that I just reviewed is. So by September 1st, I have a document ready for the general manager to give me approval to sit at these committees. And, you know, we've already discussed it with accounting, and we're a team, and this is the capital being proposed.
Okay.
The July 1st that you refer to is part of the project planning process, where anybody submitting a new item, specifically clubs, has that information in by July 1st so that I have some time to go through it. The general manager even determines yes or no on whether it's a reasonable request. I give that information back to the club. Then they know if it's been approved to move forward, and if it's a yes, then I start doing homework for the September 1st document.
Okay. Should that be included in here somewhere explaining that? I know you have the process, the sheet that shows going from the diamond to the square to the.
My opinion is it's a working system,
And leave it alone. Okay. And then the last 3.5, board approved projects will be included in the 5-year plan and incorporated into the annual budget. Do we have a 5-year plan that is available for people to see?
every year.
Okay.
So the committees or the governing board gets the 5-year plan that comes directly from also from our reserve study technology, because we can see 30 years out, but a 5-year plan is what's expected from policy.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Is that it on that one, Tom?
I'm sorry?
Is it that what you have on this first one?
Yes. And
Do any of the committee
John?
members have any question on the very first one? Nancy?
I'll be brief, but it's kind of funny that on 2.1 requires member input. I had a question on that too. Where does that input come from? Who is it? Like, I kind of thought it's a good thing to hear, but does it happen? What does that kind of mean? I found the same thing. I don't know the answer.
I don't know, do you want an answer? I don't have an answer for you either. That's why I brought it up.
Carl?
If you want my input, I never noticed it quite sounding that specific until Tom brought it up, but I believe the process is the member input. I mean, we do our committee reviews. The governing board ultimately gives their final word. We have comments. We have our yearly forums. We have the involvement between the department staff that's leading a project, whether it's myself or Todd, and a club. So I'm assuming that that's the member input that's necessary. That's all I have to say.
Did you have something else you wanted to add? John?
Yeah, thank you. I'm puzzled with what is it intending to do? And to me, it falls short if the intention here is that member input is useful, or member input is not required, but is accepted. I'm very uncomfortable with what this means, because to me, I have no meaning to it, to that whole sentence. I just don't know what it means. And therefore, I think we ought to think about what do we want it to mean and change the wording of it. I don't think it means anything the way it's written. That's looking in from the outside in.
Thank you.
That's my view of it.
That's kind of where I was at too. John, did you have something? Alan?
Did you have a proposal for what you would put there?
No, I didn't. One of the others might have, but we didn't research it past that. We wanted an explanation first, and then from there to see if it warranted a rewriting or at least something that would explain where we were going and what it entailed. So that's just a question for.
Alan?
So I'm somewhere in the middle of all of it. I think the intent here, when I read this, I think the intent here is worthy. And I think maybe it's just a wording issue, because I tend to be where I think Carl is, that much of the capital process, especially when it comes to club renovations and things of that nature, begins with requests that come in through those organizations. Those organizations are member organizations, and therefore that, in my mind, would be kind of your member input, as well as the member input we derived by meetings like this, governing board and things of that nature, which are all, member representations of one form or another. So what I think might be here is, the real question isn't so much whether this line is worthwhile in my input, it's whether we just need to tweak the wording a little bit to make sure that there's clarity around exactly what we mean there. But I think the process that we actually have here is working, and I think we are actually following it, and I hear it in the reports. I think maybe it's just a matter of doing some tweaking and adjusting it. I don't think the system has failed. I think the wording has failed.
I quite agree.
Any comments from the audience on, Russ, did you have something to add?
Comment for the back of the bus. So the last project that we used this process would have been the R.H. Johnson Pool, where we had 2 public forums. And maybe we put public forums in brackets and then add owner to member. Owner, member, public forums, that's what part of this process explains. And not all projects go through this. These are major projects. $4.1 million pool, and I think the one prior to that was the, where we made the modification to the curbage and all the plant life around the front of R.H. Johnson. That was another one that went in front of everybody. An arc, yes, yeah. Does that help at all?
Nancy?
I would just like to ask this fine group of people to come back with what you want in there, or what you think is good in there. Now that you've heard, a little bit. I think requires member input is a little vague. Oh, there's Carl.
So I just ask you to look at the addendum. It's important. It's pretty detailed. It shows a process of a determination of, what some might think is an easy project. Sometimes I might overstress that this is, with your approval, this is capably of being accomplished in a 1-year cycle if approved. And then some things are not. The idea of maybe a big addition somewhere, like Russ mentioned. Maybe it's as simple as just striking the word member and bolstering, what input means. You get what I'm saying? So, because if, again, the project planning process, it covers both simple projects and extended projects. And I try to apply that regardless of the size of the project, quite honestly, you know what I mean? So if the recommendation comes from this board that what I thought might be a simple process, you might say, I want this to take a 2-year planning cycle and do some investigation or get documents or something like that. So, and that's, it's either done in the short term, like I've presented that to you on a season like this, or I already have come to you and said, this is going to take a couple of years, or others have provided that input, I've never been asked the questions of actually, what's, usually it's your discussion, but my input.
Did you have a question, Alan?
No.
Okay, do you want us to take it back to the 3 of us and rewrite it, or you want to do something here, or what's your? Pleasure.
You know me very well, Tom. That was going to be my next comment. I'd like you to come back to us with revised language and present it at our November meeting, please. Is everyone in agreement with that? Okay. Then we will move along to the next one.
Next one is FAO2, donations, memorialization, naming, and advertising guidelines. And there is a 13-page guideline.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we got from this was the list of existing memorialization, easy for you to say.
You did it.
And that maybe that needs to be just updated. I think there were a few in there that either were vague or not as specific to what's out there. John and Alan, do you remember?
You are correct. I think all we wanted to do was recommend that we just make sure this is current and up to date. We couldn't determine exactly when the list was compiled, so just have staff look at it and make sure the list is current. That would be the only recommended adjustment.
Go ahead, Nancy.
We're going to get out of here by noon, I promise. Predetermined amount of time. Who determines that? Is that our maintenance? Is that our club? Is that the board? Who predetermined amount of time?
Where are you at?
It's sorry, 20 naming rights. Naming rights include the naming of a facility or portion of a facility for a predetermined amount of time. And I agree that they can't stay up forever, but how do we determine that again? We went through this with the Clay Club, but I can't say that I remember who determines what the amount of time is. That's all.
I have an answer to your question. 1 year for the GM? Yeah. So it's 1 year for the GM, 3 years for the board president. A lot of it has to do with what the item is and its life. That was always a big question.
Yes.
You know, somebody wants to donate something. What do you do with it when it's reached its life expectancy? Because it isn't ours. So, you know, that was a huge question when we went through all this.
Does that need to be in this policy, Kay or Tom?
Alan's looking quickly.
1 year, 3 years?
That it may be in the attachment that we.
I believe it's in here. I believe it's in the addendum, and I'm going to confirm that. Yeah, because I remember seeing exactly what Russ is pointing out. I can't remember right now where I saw it.
It's also in the bylaws.
Maybe that's where I saw it.
So is there any need to do anything different with this or take it as it is? Group?
As long as a member can fairly easily find that out before they give us the clock or the ribbons or the flag or whatever. As long as it's easily available and they can find that out, I'm fine with the way it is.
The attachment that we're referring to for the benefit of the audience, the donation, memorialization, and naming and advertising guidelines is all a separate document that's an attachment to this one that was last reviewed and updated March 11 of 2021. Would perhaps be a good idea for the rest of the committee to review that and read the in-depth specifications, because there's a great deal of information in there that I think is answering your questions. But the attachment, not in the text of the original, but it's an attachment to it.
Anything more on 2?
Anything more on 2? Moving on to 3.
Okay, we're on to 3, FAO 3, indemnification. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we have a consensus to leave that as it is, the last one?
Yes, for me.
Yeah, we do.
Well, I push back a little on that.
Okay.
I thought we were going to, as a committee, we were all going to look at this, the attachment, and see if there were any tweaks needed.
Well, if you want to.
I thought we said that, maybe bring it up next meeting if anybody
delay
has
that
any tweaks, not major revisions. I thought that's what we had said before.
Okay. Are we in agreement to delay this one to the next meeting as well?
Sure.
So you all have time to do your homework and read the attachment? Okay.
Just point of clarity, the policy itself, I don't think is at all an issue. I think the issue is the attachment. The attachment is only cited in the policy as a guideline for someone to go look at. So I think the physical policy itself, there's no tweaks there.
Okay, I'm on board on that.
Yeah, and
That's a
what I
good-
do think we do need to do is one, we ask for the staff to make sure that the list of current naming rights and so forth is current, because we didn't know exactly when it was, just to update that. So that's one adjustment, and then second is the assignment for us to look at it and make sure we're okay with it. I think we can update the guidelines separate from the policy, because I don't think that is actually the policy. The policy is
I would
just this
disagree
document.
with you. We need to do them at the same time to make sure they're consistent and kept
Okay.
together.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want fragmented issues.
Okay.
Okay, Tom,
So we're bringing that back.
bringing it back.
Oh, okay. On to indemnification of the association, FAO 3. We didn't see any need for changes unless there's something.
Tom, I'm like a bad penny. I just won't go away. Could we increase the font on this to be consistent with all the other ones? It's a little bit of an eye chart.
I guess it can. Yes, Karen?
Okay. Any other questions on, excuse me, FA3? Move on to FA4. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
On to FAO4, safety awareness. And the question that came up while we were discussing this was 2.1.1, establish a safety committee consisting of selected staff members for the purpose of establishing, monitoring, and enforcing safety rules for all employees of the association. We take it that this is employees. And then the second, ensure that all charter clubs using powered equipment and or hand tools conform to the safety program, rules, regulation, procedure. And I believe each charter club is instructed to have a safety committee if they have a club. And we're not sure if that maybe should be added, or since it is in how you start a club, if this is sufficient. Any question?
Any comments?
Font.
John?
I'm sorry to be picky, but we have a community of seniors. Make it a little easier to read. Thank you, Karen.
So the only issue on that one is the size of the print. Are we in agreement? Moving along to 405.
Smoke-free environment, and I remember redoing this when marijuana got, and e-cigarettes and vaping. So this was updated recently from the 2007 original. on the odor-free environment, they refer to this Smoke-Free Arizona Revised Statutes. That was May 1st of 2007. So that was prior to a lot of this stuff, the e-cigarettes. The question, I guess, is the situation, I think it covers it, but if it's the CBDs that are versus the THCs of marijuana, I think it covers the legal recreational marijuana. I think it's smoking in general. But the other question is then on 3.3, smoking is not permitted within a minimum of 25 feet. And in some of the statutes, it says 20 feet. Do we need to be, we're giving them an extra 5 foot. So is that something that needs to be addressed?
Thoughts?
I really like that it's 25 feet. But, you know, we do follow the Arizona Revised Statutes, the ARSs. One other question for you guys. What about the concerts, the outside stuff? They could just smoke out there at Beardsley? Okay, I just didn't see that. I didn't think they could. I just didn't see that, but okay. And the other one in 1.0 purpose was a pleasant and smoke-free and odor-free environment. So that's going to include the perfumes, and we've had issues like that. This policy takes care of that. Please don't wear Chanel everywhere, right?
I was involved with that originally. My wife is sensitive to fragrances, and at one time, bathroom odor sanitizers were a problem, and it's been addressed over the years. So yes, thank you. And that was one thing I highlighted and we discussed. We all showered and used our deodorant.
Okay, are we in consensus to just move this one along? Or do you want any changes, other than the size of the type? Okay, you're good with it?
That's all we had, Kay.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the audience on any of these policies?
We do have a online question, and so I'm going to read it. It's from the name on the YouTube is T-Meister, and it says, "Can you tell me why these policies have to be done by December? Who made that decision? I think the policies are important and should not be rushed by an arbitrary date." Be a question for you, Chair.
Not being a resident historian, even though you might think I am, I do not recall why that date was selected when it was. Does staff have any idea?
It's in the bylaws.
Okay. You might want to look at the bylaws, but that would answer the question. It is in the bylaws. That's the only one?
It is the only one. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to the committee for their work, and I will remind the remaining four of you that we're looking forward to what you bring us on FA 6, 7, 9, and 10 next month. For the group that is involved in that, please stay after the meeting. I have some additional material I want to give you to look at that goes with one of those items. So, thank you. That brings us to 4.07. This is the revisitation of FA 8 as redlined regarding the daily guest fee policy. For those of the committee, you will remember we had this on our agenda last month. It was our feeling it was ready to be moved forward. It did get moved forward to the governing board. That came about with some discussion and some minor changes. For those of you who have the redlined, multicolored copy of the document, the only changes that you're looking at now that are different from that focus on the two sections that are in the pink highlighter. The first one appears in 4.1.1.2, which had to do with resident cardholder guests. And at that time, the wording in that first sentence has stayed the same, but it's the second sentence that's put back in there that for clarification purposes, and that reads that the guests that rates, there's some special things that are in the sports pavilion, the bowling alley policy, and also golf course policies. So they are an exception, and so that additional sentence is merely a guide to refer to those because there are differences for those two locations. And so that's the only reason that was added for clarification. And on the reverse side, on 4.1.2.2, which is resident card holders, guests 16 years old and under must at all times be accompanied by an adult, ages 18 plus. And again, that same sentence about guest ages requirements, accompanying adults may vary at the sports pavilion, bowling, and a golf course per golf policies. The last item on this document completely is 4.2.2. And if you will recall, there was some discussion that we had added the sentence that a daily guest pass fee may not be used to participate in chartered club activities. At the governing board meeting, one of my fellow directors asked to have that sentence struck. And now he is in agreement it should be put back in. So what you're looking at is really almost exactly what you approved a month ago. This is more of a formality so that we can move it along, and I'm looking for consensus to move it back to the governing board workshop so it can be continued to get moved to be approved. Any other discussion or questions about that? Nancy?
Kay, isn't 4.1.1.3 the same as 4.1.2.3?
It's copied.
Guests visiting the R.H. Johnson facility may not check out materials. Guests visiting the R. For goodness sakes, we don't want them checking out library safe. Is it the same?
I'm sorry, which one did you say
Oh,
first?
it's 4.1.1.3. It's on the back side. I call it the back side.
Okay.
And then it repeats itself down at 4.1.2.3.
It's been a copy and paste.
Yeah,
You recognize why that is, because there are two different items being
4.12?
addressed. There are two different bodies of information.
okay.
So the first one addresses the resident and
Cardholders,
cardholders
guests.
guests. The other is medical.
Yes.
So everything kind of repeats,
Okay.
in essence, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? Do we have consensus to refer this back to the governing board for their action? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So we have a recommendation.
We have a recommendation to have the governing board approve it. Yes, we do. Okay. Brings us to 5.01. I will first ask for any comments from the committee. Start with Sherry.
None at this time.
Thank you. No?
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 I do want to just make a brief comment. We've done 2 facility tours as a committee, first Palm Ridge, and then just a couple days ago, we were out at Beardsley. And I just want to say that, I continue to be impressed, not just as a member of this committee and now the governing board, but also as a resident, at the overall quality of our facilities and the overall upkeep and care we put into them. But even more than that, I'm very impressed with, wow, a little ringing going on. I'm very impressed by the clubs and the groups that are using these facilities. We were at Beardsley, as you all know, a couple days ago. And that was one of the first times in recent period that I've been able to walk through the garden club. And it is just really impressive. And I just want to commend all of the clubs and groups that use our facilities. They do some fantastic stuff. And if you get a chance to go see it, please do so. It's really very, very impressive. Thank you, that's all.
Nancy?
It's actually a small request, and I'm going to direct it toward Carl. Sorry. As we get near the end of this process in a few months, would you be able to call out very specifically the amount of money in that we're asking to move forward, in a nice summary total? Because I know we have, as a community, we have a daunting amount of capital needs in the next 5 years, headlined by the irrigation projects. And I'd just like to make sure, as a little reality check, that what we send forward as projects, that we have some awareness of how much money we're asking for to do that. The numbers are all here. It's just a matter of putting them in one little place where it would be obvious to us and other members of the community that probably aren't as close to this. So we know what we're talking about in terms of dollars. Just a kind of a recap of that.
So over the next 30 days and the next round of committee meetings, it's my interest to not only provide you the column that shows November changes, if any, but to also do a 50,000 and above PowerPoint presentation that gives you a few bullet points, a little more information, since it's kind of the final moment, you know what I mean? Just remember, capital budgeting and operating budgeting goes on all season long for the governing board, but if I have the best information I can, I'm going to put it in a PowerPoint, and at the end, if you want a total of what, basically page 2 here shows, no problem.
Great, thanks.
John? Anything? Russ, I received an email last night about a plumbing problem we were having with the bathrooms at Beardsley Park. Are you aware of that? The email I got was especially concerned because there's an outdoor event there this evening, and they wanted to give you time to take care of the problem. Were you aware of it at all?
Karen reached out to me this morning. I distributed my guys out on scene, and I am waiting on something back as to what caused it in the first place. But yes, that was very stopped up. That's all I know so far.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This time I'll open the floor to any questions or comments from the audience. Please sign in and state your name and rec card number, please.
My name is Paul Kleckner, 128508. I'd like to address FA08. You didn't open it for discussion on the process. So I just wanted to express my personal opinion that I think that the policy has confused guests and visitors. It's clear from our bylaws that this is a restricted 55-year-old community, and you must be at least 19 to be a resident. So I'm confused as to why we would have people that are 16 wandering around the community when to live here, you have to be older than that. So why would they be using the facilities when residents couldn't? Second, I think you did address part of the issue where you had on there bowling and golf. My question is, and you've sort of fixed it with adding sports pavilion to the bowling policy, but there are other activities within the golf area and the bowling area that are would be the resident or the guest fee would be applicable. For example, the billiard hall, they do pay the $5 fee. So there's some confusion there,
It's a $6 fee now.
and $6 now. And that's for a guest.
Yes.
A guest. So that's different than a visitor. So Webster describes a visitor as someone that is with you. If they're not with you, then they become a visitor. So how would you charge somebody when you don't have an owner, an RCW card holder with them? Because now they're no longer a guest, they're a visitor. So there's confusion there. On the golf, I'm presuming that the golf policies apply to playing golf,
Yes, we do.
not using the clubhouse. The clubhouse is where there are items for sale at a discounted price for our residents, and there is liquor being sold there. So why would you have 16-year-olds in an establishment that sells liquor when the requirement to be there is 21, same as the Lizard Acres? So I need to have that kind of explained to me, how that works. Thank you.
Thank you. Jolene, go ahead. Excuse me.
I'm sure you all have received the e-news, came Director Williams yesterday, about the recall. It was front on your e-news. I need to let you know that the recall is not happening at all on RCSCW property. So according to the bylaws, we do not have to tell you. So as a property committee, you need to understand that. Bylaws say that we need to register it with the executive secretary if we are using RCSCW property, and we are not. So I would really like something sent out, because that was definitely a mistake. So I need a correction on that, because we are misinforming our residents that we are doing something incorrect, and we are not. Any comments? So you look confused. So the deal is
I am confused.
so
Sorry,
if you're
Jillian.
doing
I
a
understand.
recall,
I understand what you're saying, but I did not understand what you said to start off with, as far as the.
okay, so so our e-news yesterday.
Oh, I
that
know
gets-
what you're talking about, but before that, you said the recall is not happening?
The recall's happening, but it's not happening on rec property.
That's the clarification I was
Right.
looking for, because I
So
thought
it's
the
not
first thing
happening
you
on-
said,
right.
it was not happening, and it didn't make sense with what followed.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, it's happening, but it's not happening on rec property. So the article yesterday in e-news gave the impression that the committee that's doing this recall is not following the policy. And we are following the policy because we're not doing it on rec property. Is that correct on that policy? Does everyone understand the policy? So I really need a correction to be sent out, because the rec center kind of made it sound like we're not following policy. We're not following the policy.
Carl, did you have something?
I believe that the rec centers made that clear through e-news. I was contacted over the weekend that an event did happen at Beardsley's parking lot at the Aquatic Center, and it was not registered with our administrative assistant, Karen Rokin. And we made the choice that, it was happening at the moment that it was happening in the time of the day, that it was civil and nobody was disturbing the peace, if you will, and we weren't going to rock the boat, if you will. So We would talk about it on Monday at the general manager's staff meeting, and we did. So I do believe
No, I was
we're
at the,
making it clear that that's, there's a policy for,
did they collect signatures or were they just talking about it? Because we have a right to just hand out cards, right? We're not asking them to sign anything.
I didn't ask anybody to leave. So regardless of what the act was, it was, we're bolstering the fact that if there's going to be any form of petitioning on rec center's policy, on property, follow these rules. Simple.
Well, I have all the petitions, so there was no one out there signing, getting petitions signed.
Great, good job for following the rules.
So I don't know who, there's cards out there. So if they run into someone and say, hey, here's a card, here's a website, you can take a look at it, I can't stop that, correct?
Nobody asked you, but when staff calls sub-management and then leads to senior management, a decision is not ignored. So
Okay, but we are not on rec property.
did I include your name or anybody else's in my comments? I said, the reason that this Sun City West e-news went out was just as a reminder that choices to be made on rec center's property, you have an obligation to inform the administrative assistant. So thank you for following that policy.
Thank you. So am I going to be able to get,
I don't think so. I think
Anything?
it's good information if it's out there. I will discuss it further with the general manager.
okay, because they cannot sign a petition on any rec property. And that's what the policy states, that if I have signatures being signed on rec property, I have to inform Karen. I know it. I did Lou Mancuso. So
We remember.
I recalled Lou. So I kind of know where my boundaries are. So,
Good job.
If I may
I kind
suggest,
of feel like this is splitting hairs a little bit, and I read that too. I didn't know what you guys were doing out there, but it felt really negative to me. It really
folks,
felt.
if I may interject,
this is,
this is an operational issue. It is not a properties committee issue. I would
I just wanted
suggest
to
if
let
you
the
would have to
properties-
take it out further with management. You know the ropes, you know where to go,
Right.
and I would recommend that you do that.
and I just wanted to make sure that you understood as property committee that we were not having anything signed on our CSCW property.
Thank you for your
Okay.
commitment. Any other comments? If not, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
One more. Cool. I'll use an analogy. When you buy a used car, you give it the 20-foot look. You expect to have some minor dings, scratches, wear points, but it looks good. When you buy a new car, you spend a lot of money on it. You want it to look pristine. You kick the tires, you look under the hood, etc. The same thing applies to the swimming pool. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on that swimming pool rubber job, and it's an embarrassment. If you look along the edging, just in the walking track area, I can count over 24 scratches, gouges, chunks missing, unfinished portions. It's terrible. I went into the inside the pool and talked to the manager.
Excuse me, sir, which pool are you talking about?
The R.H. Johnson pool.
Thank you.
I went in and talked to the manager, and I said, hey, I went in the day it opened and I saw it. A couple weeks later, still nothing done. And so I went in and I said, hey, when are you going to have the company come out and fix all of these issues? And he says, oh, we've ordered the material, we talked to the company, and we're just going to do that ourselves. So then I'm thinking, now wait a minute. There had to be some kind of a warranty for the workmanship, wouldn't there, Carl? I mean, that seems reasonable. But as I understood it from him, they've waived the contractor responsibilities and said, oh, no, we'll do this ourselves. I'd like some clarification on that, Carl, and I'd like to know when the plan is to repair all the issues of poorly whatever you want to call it, poured, glued, fixed, whatever, the rubber. Thank you.
Carl?
Yes, I'd be happy to address that. So, yes, we do have some warranty issues. The vendor is not off the hook, and they're happy to come back. They are located in Texas. I am working with them. I don't feel that there's any matter of emergency or issue. It's a interruption to having a perfectly finished pool deck. We had one event where we had a storm damage. It blew over tables and actually ripped the rubber decking, so that's fully notified. I mean, I have that logged. I have an area where I'm making personal observations. People are picking at the rubber because they're not happy with it. And from one day to another, it's just being peeled back. That's very inconvenient. Not exactly sure the areas that you're discussing, but I do know a few voids. There's probably 6 locations, and I am working with the vendor on them coming back for 2 purposes. One, for them to address their actual contractual obligation and fix any warranties, and to help train us. And we do have product on hand right now, so that in case we have like another storm event, that it's possible that our staff can make the repair and make it in a timely fashion. So I'm working with the vendor. Sorry for any inconveniences that you're observing or feel, but the vendor is fully available and willing to come. They're in Texas, and I do work closely with my vendors on the ebb and flow of their business, so they don't have to jump out on a plane just to make a couple repairs. I do not.
Madam Chair, may I ask a
Yes, John.
follow-up question? In a few weeks, this committee will be touring at Johnson, so I'd like to ask a clarifying question. Is this entirely an aesthetic issue, or is there a safety issue involved, in your opinion?
My opinion is it's not a safety.
Okay, thank you. We'll all be there and get to take a good look at it. I just wanted your insight on that. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? In that case, I will adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be here before you.